Welcome to the Silvan Australia podcast, where we talk everything rural lifestyle. Welcome to another episode of the Silvan podcast. On this episode, we have with us General Manager of Spraying and Machinery for Silvan Australia, Gavin Wheatcroft. Gavin, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure, Nick.
Look, before we get into all things air-assisted booms and sprayers this week, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been at Silvan?
Yeah, no problems, Nick. I've been at Silvan now just on 12 years. Started as an account manager looking after a sales territory, South Australia and Northern Victoria, and then sort of moved into a product management and then sales management role since then. So, but still probably a fairly strong focus on the product side of things still to this day. So, and probably in terms of my focus over a lot of those years, and even in previous roles, I guess there's quite a strong focus on the vineyard market from my point of view, because certainly my sales territory with Silvan and prior to that in South Australia had a very big emphasis on that particular market. So I probably still have quite a heavy focus on those sort of products that we design and manufacture here at Silvan.
Gavin, I briefly mentioned before, we're talking about air blast and air-assisted technology. New to our range in the last 12 months has been the Silvan Airboom. Can you elaborate a little bit on the Airboom and some of the target markets for that particular product?
Sure, Nick. Yeah, look, for a long period of time, probably to put everything in perspective, we've sold booms, air assist or air shear booms for a long period of time, predominantly into the strawberry market. And while that's mostly been air shear technology, which is utilises the speed of the air with the liquid being introduced as that air passes it to create a very narrow droplet spectrum, there's been times over the years where customers have really wanted that flexibility to be able to perhaps even run their sprayer without air to target specific pests, particularly in strawberries. So that's where an air-assisted sprayer comes to the fore. So in recent years, due to that demand, we've worked with one of our suppliers, Nobili, over in Italy, to develop a boom that is an air-assist boom, but also is the boom itself is, I guess, rugged enough to stand up to Australian conditions. So, in the last 12 months, we've released a 12 and 14 metre air boom that we can attach to our 800 or 1100 litre 3-point linkage tanks. So, to this point, it's mostly been the strawberry market that has taken that on, and that's, I guess, where the initial demand has come from. But we certainly see potential in a lot of vegetable crops where people need to be quite targeted with their coverage, and some of those vegetable crops and the like, while they're not big, they have quite dense, for want of a better word, dense foliage, dense canopies that you really need that air to get in and disturb the leaves to actually be able to get in on the back side of the leaves or target flowers in the case of strawberries. So, that's where it sort of came about, is probably, as a lot of our products are, come about from grower demand for just a bit greater flexibility than perhaps what other sprayers have had in the past.
What we should elaborate on is that the boom has obviously height adjustment on a ram, but also we have adjustment in the spraying head itself, which is on a flexible tube, which has a fair amount of flexibility in it, doesn't it, Gavin?
Yeah, exactly. So you're right, Nick. It's not only can you adjust the height of the boom, you can adjust the positions of the heads, but also the angle of the spray head. So, as you alluded to, the ability to angle the head in and come in from perhaps the side, and or have an angled spray head, which often helps with disturbing the leaves, and to be able to get in on the underside of those leaves. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how you position the spray heads, which with a boom is critically important, because if you don't have that flexibility, then there's a potential that you may have great coverage on the surface, on the top side of a leaf, but it's actually created no disturbance and therefore no coverage underneath.
Yeah, I know in reference to strawberries in particular, a lot of strawberry growers are using what they would call a tunnel, or so they have hoops that go over the strawberries and then they have plastic. So this sprayer has the ability to actually target even underneath that plastic. We can adjust the heads so that they're spraying alongside of the plastic and get down underneath the plastic. So there's not a huge requirement to actually remove the plastic at all.
Yeah, and I think probably further to that point is we've also had some of these sprayers go into not only tunnel type configuration in strawberries, but also into tables. So it's becoming more and more popular with strawberries to be grown on tables, because they're at a height that's much easier to pick the strawberries. So we've been able to sell this type of product into Queensland, where the boom is much higher off the ground, but they actually have the spray heads angling in some cases up from underneath, as well as directly down from above the table. So again, that creates that greater amount of turbulence in and around the plants, and therefore improved coverage.
Yeah. One of the things we should just talk about while we're talking about this particular sprayer is some of the features that it comes with. So a Bravo 180 rate controller has full rate control.
Yeah, so that's certainly an option on those, and to be honest, I think to date everyone has taken that option and probably on that type of thing. Just generally, we're seeing a rapid increase in the amount of people that are choosing that option on any type of sprayer. So I think there's a greater level of comfort in using rate controllers, but also a greater acceptance of the benefits of having a rate controller for more accurate coverage. So it's that's certainly an option. The other main things that are options on those is a seal mix chemical hopper for filling where required, that can be fitted onto the side of the tank. So yeah, there's while most people have opted for a fairly, what I would call, standard configuration to date, there's certainly we have some flexibility on the sprayers we build here in Australia to tailor it to the particular customer's needs.
Yeah, yeah. And also we can add boom switching to that unit if we require, with the use of the Bravo 400. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So there's probably two options that we could add to get boom switching: either a Bravo 400S for someone who is perhaps entering into that GPS guidance for the first time, or we can even use an isobus system if someone already has an isobus compatible console in their tractor. We could fit an isobus compatible controller that will do the boom switching through their existing tractor controller that's isobus compatible. So there's quite a bit of flexibility in terms of that control side of things if people want to go to that next level in terms of accuracy.
Yeah, no, definitely. Hey, Gavin, look, while we're talking all things air assist, we should make mention of another new product that we brought to the range this year, the Jet Cannon sprayer, which is also, that's available in linkage, but we also have the added feature of doing that in a 2,000 litre trailed configuration. Can you tell us a little bit about that new sprayer?
Yeah, sure. So as it sort of sounds, the Cannon, it does, the shape of the spray head does look a bit like a Cannon. It's a one-sided spray head with quite a large twin turbine fan. The idea of it, I guess, the initial idea of that type of unit is for use in things like greenhouses, for nurseries, that sort of thing, where it's quite a controlled environment, where they need to be able to spray in one direction along, say, the length of a tunnel. So, as you say, it's available as a 500 litre linkage sprayer or a 2,000 litre trailed, and in fact we have even late last year built a unit that was a 3,500 litre trailer for with that spray head on the back. So it really is designed for that type of market. But what's been interesting is the greatest uptake of that product since we launched has actually been in the macadamia market, where the trees, essentially it's a native tree to Australia. Some of these trees are now getting to 12, 14, 16, and even beyond metres tall. So it's becoming an increasing challenge where some of the main pests in the macadamias, as with a lot of tree crops, are at the top of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
Finding a solution that can actually reach that sort of height is extremely challenging. So we've actually had quite good success with that particular product in the macadamia market, which wasn't something that we specifically thought when we introduced the product. Yep. But that's customers that have bought it have had great success in being able to reach the top of extremely tall trees now with that. So that's been I guess almost a bonus for us, and certainly a new option for customers.
Yeah. Gavin, even that particular product has applications also in nurseries as well, where it's just very difficult to get inside of a nursery, whether it be in a hothouse or not, where there's seedlings on tables that can extend over a considerable length of distance. So yeah, there's obviously a market for it in nurseries as well, we see.
Exactly, that's right, and that's where probably the initial product, when we first launched it, that's where the first few units were certainly sold into that market, because that's what we focused on, and essentially that's probably where the initial need was. As you say, Nick, it's some of those tunnels are quite long. It's quite a controlled environment in terms of being in a tunnel, so less exposed to obviously wind and that sort of thing, where this sprayer in quite a controlled conditions is capable of spraying quite long distances in terms of sort of 30 plus metres. So that gives a farmer the ability to perhaps spray in from one end, quite a long distance, and then perhaps go to the other end of the tunnel and spray in from the other end and reach the middle quite effectively. So it also has a hydraulically adjustable angle on it. So from the tractor cab, where required, if the table height is different, or in a nursery where they may be spraying small trees, maybe the tree height varies slightly, the angle of the spray head can be adjusted very quickly from the tractor, and to get the most effective, not only distance but coverage for the application.
Yeah, okay. Now, and that adjustment is available on a hydraulic ram?
Yes, correct. So, and that's our standard. So, as I say, it gives the flexibility to, and that's probably where the flexibility then use it in an orchard type application in extremely tall trees, like a macadamia, for example, has come in, is that ability to angle the spray head according to the height of the trees and the part of the trees that they're targeting.
Okay. Now, Gavin, tell us, is there any new products coming our way in the near or distant future in terms of air assist or even air shear technology?
Yeah, well, look, probably while we're talking about the Cannon Jet sprayer, it's something that we're working on with Knobbly, who is one of our fan suppliers and the supplier of the existing Cannon Jet. We're actually working on, mainly due to the demand in the macadamias, on essentially a double-sided version of that Cannon Jet.
Okay.
So while it's been quite effective having a one-sided, obviously the ability to be able to spray a two-sided and achieve the same sort of results in those tall trees obviously allows the farmer to cover the ground much faster. So that's in develop at the moment. We're sort of hoping that all things going well with our field testing program that will happen in the next few months here in Australia, that certainly for early 2020, that we'll have a double-sided version of that sprayer available, which while the macadamia market in particular has been a focus for that product, as a double-sided unit, I think it'll offer great flexibility in other applications, other tree crops that perhaps aren't quite as tall, but will require that high volume of air in a double-sided application to either get into an extremely dense canopy or reach relatively tall trees. So, yeah, that's something that's in progress at the moment. Outside of that, we're also looking to, over the next few months, expand our boom range on our field sprayers beyond the 15 metres that we have at the moment, and introduce an 18-metre boom that can be used on our larger 3-point linkage sprayers or on our 2.5 or 3,000 litre trailed sprayers. So just to be able to extend, particularly for the pasture market, that we sell a lot of our trailed and 3-point linkage sprayers into, just to essentially extend that range a bit further for farmers who need to go a bit wider or match it up with their fertiliser spreading width, etc.
Yeah, no. Well, that sounds very exciting, Gavin. Just to fill in our listeners, if they want to see these products, they can go to our Facebook page. There'll be a short article on both of these products as we release this podcast, and also go to the Silvan website, so www.silvan.com.au, and there'll be a little bit of an editorial on both of these products, so the jet cannon and also the air boom. Well, Gavin, thanks for your time on the podcast today. We really appreciate it, and no doubt we'll catch up in the near future. And thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Nick. Anytime, and look forward to talking again in the future.